forth, the Herodian family. All these are supposed to be enemies of Jesus in the New Testament. They're also enemies of the Zealots, also enemies of the Qumran documents. So you have to group these movements, like enemies, have similar interests. And it seems to me that the only problem here is the violence thing. Do we have nonviolence in Palestine yet? Do we have turning the other cheek yet in Palestine? Do we have render unto Caesar what is Caesar and render unto, God what is God? Is this going on yet in Palestine, or isn't it? And that's, I think, the political question that you have to find the answer. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's just say that this is his why he's so upset, why he hates these party chiefs so much. And he's very upset about the situation. My account will include the misfortunes of the deserters, the punishments inflicted upon prisoners, the burning of the temple, despite Caesar's disapproval. He just told us that he burned it. And the number of sacred treasures snatched from the flames. Yeah, right, the sacred treasures they took to Rome and built the Colosseum with. The capture of the entire city and the signs and wonders that preceded it. The rest of the party chiefs, the number of people enslaved, that's true, and who were sold into slavery, the fates that befell them, the way in which the Romans disposed of the last remnants of the war, demolishing the ramparts of every fort and the temple, and then Titus's return to Italy and the triumphal celebration he enjoyed there. All this I've embraced in 7 books. To those who took a part in the war and have ascertained the facts, I have left no ground for complaint or criticism. Well, I already got some complaints and criticism, Josephus. It is for those who love truth, not those who seek entertainment, that I have written. I will now begin my... That's for those who love truth. Okay. So anyway, that's his introduction. But you know what's interesting about that? It's such a modern-sounding introduction. Really is modern. It could be a person writing it today. I didn't mean to read you all that, but I thought I had to. Some of you have heard it before. Let's go into the history. I got to hurry to get where I want to get to before we break and finish up to a good place for the exam. It begins the same place as all the things. At the time when Antiochus Epiphanes was disputing the control of Palestine and Ptolemy VI, dissension broke out among the leading Jews. Onias, one of the chief priests, forced his way to the top, expelled the sons of Tobias. We had the sons of Tobias mentioned at one point in Maccabees 2, I think. But this is not the same Onias that we heard about who was killed in Antioch. This is another one who fled to Egypt. This was an earlier one even. And actually built a second Jewish temple in a place called Heliopolis, like the first one in Jerusalem. That's in the first paragraph here. Why does he begin with the temple, the second Jewish temple built by one of these Zadokite priests, let's call them Sadducee, before they were Herodianized? Why does he start with that? Because he's going to end the Jewish war with the people who don't go to Masada. Other Sicarii escape to Egypt. The Romans pursue them to Egypt in North Africa, and there they butcher all of them that they can find. And they also burned the temple in Egypt, in which the Sicarii took refuge in Egypt. So he ends the Jewish war with the Romans going down into Egypt, chasing the Sicarii and burning the temple there. That's why he starts by mentioning it here. Okay, let's go on here. Mattathias, son of Asmoneus, a priest of the village of Modi'in. Okay, so that's Maccabees 1 exactly. 5 sons fled to the hills, etc., 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 etc. This will be very telescoped compared to Maccabees 1. He achieved supremacy in that way, and with the expulsion of the foreigners, his countrymen gladly accepted his rule. And on his decease, he left to Judas, his eldest son. Well, that's Maccabees 1 exactly, but, collapsed into one sentence. You say, why did you do it like that, Professor Eisenman? Well, because there's more to it than that. That's why I didn't do it like that. Josephus does it, and you can read it that way. Judas did not expect Antiochus, or Antiochus, however you want to pronounce it. I think officially it should be Antiochus, but to my mind, Antiochus works better. To take this peacefully, so he had to marshal the available Jewish forces, and he allied himself with Rome. We had some correspondence in Maccabees 1 with the Romans. In any case, he took possession of the temple, cleansed the whole area, walled it round, made some new ceremonial vessels, threw out the old ones which were defiled, built another altar, resumed the sacrifice. What is Judas here? How is he functioning? He's like a high priest. So it is a kind of native priesthood here. And we know that the Maccabean books say that they are legitimate priestly lines. So I don't see any problem in terms of this being an unpopular priesthood. I think it was extremely popular. In the Antiquities, he mentions that Judas is elected high priest twice. So we have election there. So that's a more detailed account. The Antiquities is a little more detailed than the war in these matters. So if you want to really get the whole picture, you should look at the Antiquities too. The Antiquities includes things the war doesn't include, like John the Baptist, like James, like things like that. And the reason is, I think by 96, when the Antiquities we know was written, around 93, 94, 95, somewhere in there, Josephus felt more comfortable in his situation, probably wrongly so, because I think by saying too much in the Antiquity, he probably did himself in. Okay. He had a brother who fell victim to the pro-Syrian party, and then he gets on to Jonathan, tried to secure the friendship of Rome, the next brother. He was treacherously imprisoned. If you can't follow me, do your best. And then Simon took over, avenged the murder of Jonathan. Simon's conduct of affairs was most efficient. Maccabees won. And we've also collapsed 30 years of history too. So all of Simon's big success. So brilliant was his victory that he was appointed high priest, and after 170 years of Macedonian control, gave the Jews their freedom. So he gives Simon credit for this. The Maccabees 1 says Simon was elected to the high priesthood by the people, but later on it mentions that the Seleucids also sent him an appointment there. He too was victim of a plot. He was assassinated at a banquet by his son-in-law, and 2 of his sons were killed, and the 3rd son, John Hyrcanus, escaped. Now, I told you at one point, I'll tell you again, that because Simon was at a banquet, the official scroll theorists say at one point in the scrolls, the wicked priest is described as drinking his fill. And therefore, it's in the Habakkuk commentary, and therefore they say, it must be Simon Maccabee or one of these people who is the wicked priest because he was a drunkard. Well, there's no indication that Simon was a drunkard, or even that the wicked priest